So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. The Detroit Lions welcome back a huge playmaker to their offense this past weekend versus the Carolina Panthers as Jameson Williams made his 2023 seasonal debut against the Carolina Panthers in a massive win for the Detroit Lions to move to 4-1 on the 2023 NFL regular season. Now, Jameson Williams is a player that ever since he's been drafted has faced a lot of adversity, right? Tore his ACL on his final collegiate game with the University of Alabama, was suspended for the beginning of the 2023 season, and really has been off to a slow start to his career. And even going back to this past weekend, his first real action since the suspension has ended, Jameson Williams really didn't contribute a whole lot to the stat sheet. Only 3 targets for 2 receptions and 2 yards. It's a lot of Detroit Lions fans wishing that the former number 12 overall pick had more production, had more looks, and had more opportunities to make plays in the open field. Now, I don't know if this makes any sense or if anybody can sense a pattern here, but a lot of people feel like the speedy playmaker who was the 12th overall pick from the University of Alabama is being underutilized. It's seeming to become a trend with the Detroit Lions, or at least a trend among their fan base, that this is a very common opinion. It happened with Jameson Williams last year and is now happening with Jahmyr Gibbs this year. And of course, with Jahmyr Gibbs being out, we needed another former 12th overall pick from the University of Alabama to pick on for being underutilized. And this week, it is Jameson Williams. As I said, only had 3 targets for 2 receptions and 2 yards. Not necessarily the explosive debut that a lot of people wanted to see, with Amon-Ra St. Brown not being in the football game. However, Jameson Williams' impact is a little bit bigger than I think a lot of people want to admit, and this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to take a look at Jameson Williams. We're going to take a look at what he does well for the Detroit Lions, how impactful he's actually been off the stat sheet, and talk about why people are slightly overreacting to the fact that Jameson Williams only had 3 targets in the first NFL action of the season. So, let's take a look at Jameson Williams as a career. He's played in 7 games for the Detroit Lions, however, has never started one. He came back in week 12 of the 2022 season last year and really got off to a slow start. Was nothing but a gunner, and I believe saw 1 target against the Jacksonville Jaguars in his return. Saw a 41-yard bomb to himself to get his sole career touchdown up to this point against the Minnesota Vikings, and then was relatively quiet. Was quiet for a couple of weeks, saw a few targets, but nothing really major. And then against the Chicago Bears, had a 41-yard rushing attempt on an end around that put the Detroit Lions and set them up in the red zone to extend their lead against the Chicago Bears. He had a massive receiving touchdown in week 18 versus the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night primetime. However, it was called back due to a holding call on a tackle Matt Nelson. Jameson Williams has been nothing but a big play threat since joining the Detroit Lions, and really being in limited action, he's been pretty productive and pretty much a big play threat every single time he touched the field. Again, he had that 41-yard touchdown versus the Minnesota Vikings. He had the 40-plus yard rush versus the Chicago Bears, and then of course had the huge receiving touchdown against Green Bay that was called back, but really the hold didn't impact the play, and that is just a phenomenal play by Jameson Williams to get deep, create separation, make a tough catch in traffic, and again, stay on his feet to take it all the way to the end zone. Some of those stats aren't really showing up on the stat sheet, especially not in his receiving numbers, but they are impactful plays that show just how good Jameson Williams can be and just how close Jameson Williams is to having big games in the NFL. But throughout his career, only 7 games, only 3 catches, only 43 yards, but he does have the single touchdown. Now, if Jameson Williams isn't showing up on the stat sheet, what is Jameson Williams doing well? And that's what I want to talk about today. as the Detroit Lions used Jameson Williams on just 28 snaps, 28 of, I believe, 63 snaps. So just under half of the total snaps Jameson Williams was on the field. And they used him as a run blocker. They used him as a field stretcher. They used him a lot in the screen game, and they used him a lot as a distraction. Now we'll talk about run blocking in a little bit. That is the one point that I really, really want to focus on and talk about just how impactful Jameson Williams is. But we'll come back to that because I think that's the main juicy part of these impacts. Now, as a field stretcher, Jameson Williams did not receive a deep target against the Carolina Panthers. However, he did have several deep routes ran where he created some separation, where he really, forced the safety and the cornerback to commit. There was times where he was being double teamed over the top that opened up plays under the middle. There were times that Jameson Williams took two DBs out of the play while the play was going the opposite direction. And even though he obviously wasn't targeted, it's not going to show up on the stat sheet. That takes 2 of the 11 defenders out and creates a 10-on-9 situation for the Detroit Lions offense to be favored numerically. Jameson Williams also was used quite a bit in the screen game. Both of his catches did come from screen passes, and even though they didn't go for big gains, the first one really wasn't his fault. A blown assignment and a missed block by Marvin Jones really didn't allow Jameson Williams to do anything, resulting in a loss of 2 yards on the play. And then the next one, Jameson Williams got the ball and picked up 4 yards after the catch before being tackled again, and he was one ankle tackle away from probably picking up a first down, if not a lot more. He had open space, and the Panther defender made a great play, but you could visually see that Jameson Williams saw the green grass in front of him, saw the ability to get vertical, and really thought he might have an opportunity for another gigantic play. And then, of course, the distraction element. A little bit like the field stretcher, Jameson Williams moved in motion quite a lot. He moved across formations. He moved completely across the field and drew in defensive backs, drew in safeties, drew in cornerbacks, and forced the Carolina Panthers defense to really look after him because, again, if Jameson Williams is unaccounted for, if Jameson Williams somehow sneaks behind your defensive back or is even with your defensive back, he's probably going to be gone for a big play, and he was open for some big plays. There were some deep shots where Jared Goff just didn't get to that read. There were some opportunities for Jameson Williams to be very impactful through the air, and Jared Goff just didn't get him the ball because it wasn't the primary read, but Jameson Williams nonetheless was effective with the snaps that he got. And again, I want to go back to run blocking because that's where Jameson Williams' impact was felt the absolute most and where it's been felt for the past 7 games that he's been on the field. Now, Jameson Williams' run blocking was incredible. Jameson Williams directly resulted in 3 major rushing plays for the Detroit Lions that I'm going to show as I talk about it. The first one is going to be that David Montgomery touchdown run, right? Early in the first quarter, the first offensive possession for the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions run the ball with David Montgomery. They are about roughly at midfield, probably not expecting a touchdown on the play, but expecting a chunk play nonetheless. Jameson Williams steps up immediately and engages in a block with the slot cornerback. And when David Montgomery breaks a tackle and cuts outside, Jameson Williams completely flattens the defensive back, and then it can proceed to outrun the remainder of the defensive backs to catch up to David Montgomery to celebrate with him in the end zone. That touchdown doesn't happen without Jameson Williams' willingness to block, and that touchdown doesn't even get started, doesn't even get moving without Jameson Williams' original block to shut down that defensive player. Again, put the offense in a numerical advantage. Another play where Jameson Williams blocking really came into view was on the red zone run, or the run that resulted in Craig Reynolds getting into the red zone towards the end of the football game, right? He broke outside and it was a one-on-one block with Jameson Williams and the defensive back. Jameson Williams completely walled off his guy to the inside, allowing Craig Reynolds to get outside, allowing Craig Reynolds to get down to the 3-yard line, and eventually set him up for his first career rushing touchdown. And then later in the game after that, even Craig Reynolds had another rush where he started going off to the left, cut back to the right, and Jameson Williams blocking downfield. He blocked his guy 5, 10, 15 yards down the field for Craig Reynolds, ended up being enough for Craig Reynolds to slip past that guy and pick up an extra 5 to 6 yards on the play. That doesn't happen without Jameson Williams' willingness to block. That doesn't happen without Jameson Williams being willing to go down the field, engage in blocking, cause a little bit of contact, cause a little bit of havoc, and eventually allow big plays for the running back to be made. Now, Jameson Williams blocked everybody he was asked to on Sunday. He blocked cornerbacks, he blocked safeties. There were plays where he got to the second level and walled off linebackers. And there was even a play where the run went to Jameson Williams' side. He originally did miss the block on the blitzing linebacker, but he turned around and got in the way of number 99 for the Carolina Panthers, their defensive tackle. And even though Jameson Williams definitely did not stop the defensive tackle, as there's probably a 150 plus pound gap between the two of them, he was willing to do so and did slow the defensive tackle down enough for him to be ineffective on the play. So Jameson Williams is a willing blocker, and there have been several big rushing plays. I would even go back to last year and say there was at least 2 rushing touchdowns that were a 100% would not have happened without Jameson Williams. And the David Montgomery touchdown is another one you can add on to it. So through 7 games, yes, Jameson Williams has 3 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown, but he also has 3 plays at minimum where the rushing touchdown wouldn't have happened without him. There are several big plays on the ground that don't happen without Jameson Williams' willingness to block. Ben Johnson has a saying. Ben Johnson has a phrase that he uses among his wide receivers in his skill positions, and that saying is no block, no rock. Now, if you're not a football fan or you aren't necessarily familiar with some of the football terminology, that might not make a lot of sense to you. But what it essentially means is that if you are not willing to block as a wide receiver, as a tight end, as a running back, as a fullback, as whatever the case may be, you are not getting the football in your hands. You're not getting the rock. You're not getting targets. You're not getting carries. And we see it with everybody. TJ Hawkinson wasn't a great blocker, got out, got traded to Minnesota, is no longer a problem of the Detroit Lions. They brought in a guy like Sam Laporta who blocks his butt off and sees a lot of targets in a lot of plays. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a very willing blocker, as is Craig Reynolds. Even Khalif Raymond, the undersized player, is a very willing blocker. And now we have Jameson Williams getting in on that action as well. He is one of the most willing blockers on the Detroit Lions wide receiving core. He is a player that constantly looks for people to block down the field because he knows that impact is being felt by the rushing attack. He knows it's being seen on tape by the coaching staff, and he knows it's going to get him more targets down the road. But Jameson Williams is still very young. Again, only playing in 7 games for the Detroit Lions. His chemistry with Jared Goff isn't quite there yet. After a full training camp, it took Amon-Ra St. Brown 11 games before his chemistry with Jared Goff really hit the ground and really started to get off to their hot start. It took 11 games for the 4th-round rookie to find that connection. Jameson Williams doesn't have that yet. He doesn't have his first training camp. He had 6 games in the regular season and a couple of practices every single week to mesh with Jared Goff. Not enough time. He had a training camp and had a little bit of preseason work, but didn't have the first 4 games of the NFL season, and some of that connection was lost. It's going to take a couple weeks before that connection is back, but we saw it at the end of last season, right? We saw it kind of pick up a little bit where he got that 40-plus yard touch versus the Chicago Bears. And then a couple weeks later, he got that massive touchdown reception versus the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. That trust was there from Jared Goff, but Jared Goff's a little bit unfamiliar, right? He's been out for over a month, and there's going to take a little bit of time to build that chemistry back up. But if Jameson Williams keeps playing the way that he has been, if Jameson Williams continues to block the way he has, run routes the way he has done, he is going to get the football a lot. And even if you want to take a look at the drop that Jameson Williams had, yeah, it's a play he should have caught. It's a ball that he should have hauled in, and it's a play that he needs to make in the future. But that play is not all bad. The route that he ran to create that separation was an incredible one. And if he keeps running routes like that, he's going to see targets down the field. He's going to see receptions, and he's going to see big plays start coming his way more and more often. So with all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. I wanted to take a look at Jameson Williams' impact because he's been a guy that has been arguably the most heavily criticized player on the Detroit Lions team by Detroit Lions fans since entering the NFL. And I know the stat sheet doesn't look great. I know that Jameson Williams' impact isn't necessarily being felt through the air as much as some people would have liked through his first 7 games. However, his impact is being felt. It's being seen by the coaching staff. It's being noticed by the other players. And it is going to put Jameson Williams in a situation to succeed sooner rather than later. And sooner rather than later, hopefully, fans start to catch on to exactly how valuable Jameson Williams is to this rushing attack, how valuable he is to this team's future, and how valuable he can be when he starts building a little bit of chemistry with his quarterback. So with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below how you felt about Jameson Williams' debut, how you feel about Jameson Williams' first 7 games overall, and what you think Jameson Williams is going to be able to accomplish moving forward. I'm very curious what you guys have to say, but with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.